Do you miss fighting dragons, like to soar through the air, or keep your enemies no more than a polearm away? Then maybe you'd like to play the Dragoon in Guild Wars 2 open world PvE. Now that you can use a spear on the Revenant specialization Vindicator, you can achieve a very similar aesthetic and playstyle to that draconic fighter. And by focusing on buffing the Vindicator's leap, which is tied to the dodge mechanic, we can do plenty of damage while surviving through high evasion uptime for a fun and effective build that will get you through 99% of the content of Guild Wars 2. So let's just get straight into the build. I go with full Berserker gear and Scholar runes because we're going for full damage while getting most of our defense from evasion and not actually taking hits, which is also why we want the Sigil of Stamina and Energy on the spear. We never really need to swap weapons because we'll be spending most of the time in the air, so you won't run out of skills to use. Swapping legend stances, however, will trigger the energy sigil, and when killing a mob, you also recharge your endurance to dodge more. The Relic of Zakiros is important because it heals us for damage dealt, allowing us to stick to dealing damage mostly, but it requires Fury to work, so we'll need to pay attention to the skill order we can use later on. If you can't get the Relic of Zakiros, then you'll want to get more survivability elsewhere, like through the dragon stats, using your heal skills more often, or timing your dodges more defensively. As the second weapon won't be used much, you can put anything you want there, but I put a staff because it looks the closest to another spear, and it can be used defensively if the situation calls for it. For the traits, Invocation gives plenty of damage and extra crit chance to ensure that our leaps do maximum damage. You can choose between Rapid Flow and Incense Response, depending on if you want more movement speed or damage, but since there's no other easy access to swiftness, I prefer to get it here. Now, Retribution is necessary for the Dragoon because after years of fighting dragons, you'll want to make sure that they're finished off, but also because there's extra endurance recovery and vigor, which will give you more dodges, and you can also use the Bowl of Orient Truffle and Meat Stew that can give you even more dodge regeneration. And on dodge, you'll get Resolution, which will give you some extra damage reduction, and enable Vicious Reprisal, which will give you just extra passive damage, and you'll be able to keep that up permanently because you're dodging so much. Then in Vindicator, go for all the dodging and damage modifiers, and Reaver's Curse will allow you to regain endurance to dodge more, and it will make your next dodge do double damage, which means you'll want to get all of your damage modifiers up before using your next dodge. So then the skills are Alliance Stance and Malik Stance. Even though we won't be using many conditions, the Malik Stance allows you to keep leaping in between your dodges, and you can pull enemies together so that you can hit them all with your dodge since its range isn't that large. This is also the main purpose of the spear. The Force skill and the Malik Sleep will help you to pull enemies together while performing your dodge rotation. The dodge rotation is pretty simple but requires some cooldown management. You always want to dodge when at maximum endurance, but at the start of a fight you want to give yourself Fury to increase your critical chance. This is done by using the Luxon Alliance Stance's Scavenger Burst, and this also gives you 20 endurance per enemy you hit, which is why it's super important to pull enemies together. Hitting 5 enemies with this skill maxes your endurance, so you can dodge twice just off that, and Scavenger Burst is a low cooldown. So the skill priority is to use Scavenger Burst and your F2 off cooldown to keep your endurance flowing as fast as possible, but never use these if you would waste them by overcapping your endurance. So you want to dodge before using them. In some situations there won't be many enemies to get value from using Scavenger Burst off cooldown, so you can legend swap off cooldown to keep up your dodges from the energy sigil and still get some fury when swapping out and back into Alliance Stand. Because your dodges don't take up any energy, you'll have plenty of resources to use any weapon or stand skills you want, like stun breaks, the Spear 3 for mobility, or even the Spear 5, which stacks up to have pretty good power damage modifiers, but you won't be focusing too much on that, it's just kind of a filler. If things get a bit dicey and you can't deal damage to heal off of, you can always swap to the Kurzik stance or the staff to cleanse conditions or heal yourself. So as long as you stick to that rotation, you should be doing most of your damage. But in some situations, you're going to need a dodge on demand, and you're going to be out of dodges because you're constantly spamming dodges. And this is where your spear 3 or swapping into your staff and using the 3 or the 5 skill there is going to come in handy, because those are extra dodges that you'll generally have available to you at any time if you're out of a dodge and you need a dodge right now and you don't have time to use scavenger burst or your F2 because those have an animation. But that is pretty much how you play the build. So if you like this content, then please like the video, subscribe for more, and I will see you all in the next one.